Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday, our Tech Tuesday, where I delve a little bit deeper into the slightly more technical aspects of nutrition and life and how this amazing little machine of ours that we call our body actually works and how we can keep it working. I scared a whole lot of elderly people this afternoon because I did a talk at one of our local retirement villages. And there were a couple of quite shocked looks and wide eyes when I spoke about everything over there. But a lot of people were enlightened and were very grateful that I was able to give them a few tips. So hopefully I can give you guys a few tips tonight as well. It's February, scarily enough, midway through February. And February is Heart Month because it's the Valentine's month, which tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So it's Heart Month, and we need to learn to love our hearts and to look after our hearts. We've only got one heart. We've got a couple of kidneys. We've got a couple of eyes. We've got a couple of ears. We've only got one heart. And it starts beating, pretty much from about 2 weeks after conception and keeps going until the day we become dust. That's how important that little muscle in the middle of your chest is. So we need to look after it and keep it strong. So we did a few basics last week, and I'm going to kick in with my screen over here, and we'll pick up pretty much where we left off last week. Just get rid of a few other things over here. Okay. So we are learning how to take steps to reduce heart risks. Life is risky. No matter what you do, we are at risk of something. But if we can reduce those risks and take all the precautions, so much the better. It's like jumping out of an aircraft at 30,000 feet with a parachute. You could still die, but your risk is a lot more reduced. You can jump out of an aircraft without a parachute. It has been done. Your risk is a lot higher, but if you take the precaution of putting a net at the bottom and you aim straight, your risk of dying is significantly reduced. And I know somebody who has done this. There's evidence of it on YouTube. So I know it's possible. But I wouldn't encourage this on a daily basis. So we covered all the basics last week. And this week, our second tip that we're looking at is to be active. Now, what I mean by being active, staying active is key to keeping heart disease at bay. I'm not talking running Comrades Marathon. That's a bit extreme. I'm talking move. They say sitting is the new smoking. People who sit all day increase their risk of all sorts of health complications, including heart attacks. The AHA, which stands for the American Heart Association, recommends a minimum of 150 minutes of moderate exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise per week. So we're not talking per day, we're talking per week. I'll let you do the maths as to how much time that is, but it's not a lot of time. Dr. Scafidi suggests starting with a stroll if you've been on a workout hiatus. So don't think that you can go from sitting on the couch, having done absolutely nothing for decades, and going out and running a marathon. You probably will drop dead from a heart attack. Even though they say getting up and going for a jog or brisk walk is good for your heart, if you have done nothing for years, you get up and try and run a marathon, your heart is not going to forgive you very easily. So you start by going for a walk around the block or walk around the couch I often jokingly say to my patients who have had surgery and it's now the first day or the second day post surgery, and I say, right, well, physio is going to come and see you today, and you're going to jog around the block. Meaning they get out of bed and they walk around the bed and they collapse on the other side. Because quite often, especially if they've had big surgery, that is all that they can do. And we take getting up, walking around for granted. You've had major surgery and you've been in bed for 3 or 4 days, you get out, trust me, your biggest workout is actually going to be getting out and standing next to your bed. If you're feeling strong enough, you could make it around the bed to the other side, and you're going to feel as though you have just run a marathon. It's quite mind-blowing how that works. However, the day after that, they get out and go around the block twice. And the following day, they're running all the way around the ward, and so they go. So if you haven't done a lot of workouts in the past, get up, go for a walk. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, doesn't matter. Just get moving. Begin slow. Build up to 30 minutes of moderate exercise daily. These guys that can do 150 to 200 push-ups, sometimes a lot more than that, they couldn't do it the first time out. They started with 1, and then they did another 1, and then they did 2, and then they did another 2. And so it goes. When I did my park run, or when I do my park run, the first time I went, maybe because I've always been comparatively active and walking a lot, I did it in about 45 minutes. Now I can do it in about 30 minutes. I've seen other people who their first run wasn't even a run, it was a walk. An hour, 15 minutes. And now they're doing the park run in 45 minutes. And they're improving. So start slow, build up, like anything. How do you walk from here, from Durban to Cape Town? 1 step at a time. Having a support system makes it easier. So if you do decide you're going to go to the gym, get a personal trainer, grab a buddy, go with them. This is why I like parkrun, because there's 200 other bright sparks over there, all taking part and doing some form of exercise. Some of them virtually sprint it. Some of them can barely walk it. But the idea is to get up, get out, go do it, and encourage those along the way. I have guys who overtake me coming back and say, well done, you're doing well. I then go back along the trail. People who I can see are exhausted. Well done, end is in sight, keep it going. That encouragement makes such a big difference. So have a support system. Get somebody to hold you accountable. Yeah, get somebody to phone you every day and say, hey, have you done your push-up today? Did you take 10 steps today? Or would you like to go for a walk? Doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Dr. Scafidi and his family even hit up local 5K races, meaning that they go out and they do things like park run or any 5-kilometer run, which is a fun way to stay fit together. And when I talk about park run, it doesn't have to be the run part. Get to the park, get walking, get moving, because that is actually how parkrun started. There was a group of friends sitting around, getting fat, getting lazy, and they decided they needed to do something. And that is where parkrun was born. The next thing is quit smoking. Now, I don't know about you, I only smoke when I'm on fire, but if you haven't started smoking, don't start. If you have been smoking, it doesn't matter how long, quit it. Again, it's not going to be easy. AHA warns that smokers up their game for chronic issues like arteriosclerosis, which is setting the stage for heart disease and stroke. Arteriosclerosis is a hardening of the arteries. Our heart is flexible, our If you think about your skin, it's flexible. Our bodies are flexible. Our arteries and veins should be flexible. But when you're doing things like smoking or various other things that are harmful, those arteries start to calcify and harden. And what happens if something can't move? Imagine your belt is notched up about 3 notches tighter than what you used to. How do you feel? You feel very uncomfortable. You feel claustrophobic. And that's what your heart is feeling like when it's got arteriosclerosis, where it can't flex, it can't move. That's what's happening. That's where your heart attacks come about. Quitting isn't easy, but it's doable. And it's a good idea to find a local support group who can guide you through your journey to quitting smoking or any addiction. We've got a support group at our local church that is there for smokers, for alcoholics, for drug abusers, and more importantly, they're there for the support structure and the families of those addicts. You probably, unless you are an extremely strong personality, you're probably not going to do it on your own. You need somebody to help you and to encourage you. The next step is to have your blood pressure checked regularly. BP machines are very easy to come by these days. You can get them at pretty much any pharmacy. You can buy them online. And if you don't want to get a blood pressure machine of your own, go down to your local clinic. Some of the bigger commercial pharmacy areas have got clinics, and I'm pretty sure they would happily take your blood pressure on a weekly basis if you wanted them to. It doesn't cost anything. They call uncontrolled high blood pressure the silent killer because it's symptom-free, but silently harms your arteries, heart, and organs. And think about blood pressure like a treadmill at a gym. I don't know if you've ever been on a treadmill, but if you go on a treadmill, I hate the things personally myself because I can't run in a straight line. I'm so used to running trails where if you run in a straight line, you're bound to land in a bush or a hole or something like that. So I find it very difficult to run on a treadmill. But I have done it a few times. And you start off and you get that treadmill to start, and you start off at a walk, and it speeds up and it speeds up, and you go. And then you can get it to move at a little bit more than comfortable pace, like a fast walk, and then you speed it up to a run. Now, imagine somebody comes along and hits the fast forward button on that treadmill, and you are now hanging onto the handles, and you are sprinting faster than you have ever sprinted in your life before. And if we put you on the road, you would say, I could never run that fast. However, because you're on the treadmill, you know that if you let go, you're going to fall and you're going to get hurt. Now, your blood pressure is the same sort of thing. It is putting your heart and your arteries on a treadmill at virtually maximum speed. They find it very, very hard to keep up. If your blood pressure hits 140/90, and you measure it in millimeters of mercury or above, you might end up in the hands of a cardiologist, because I think normal BP is in the region of about 180/60 or 70, somewhere around about there. I know they've changed it recently, but if it hits, 120/60 or 70, somewhere around about there. If it hits 140 or 180, you know that you're in trouble. According to Dr. Scafidi again, you need to have your BP checked regularly. Now, there's certain conditions that you have to be in to do your blood pressure check. So don't check your blood pressure just after you've read the news, or don't check your blood pressure just after a run. It's going to be elevated. Sit down, relax, breathe for a few minutes, and then let them check your BP. You'll get a much more accurate reading from there. You need to know your numbers and team up with your primary care doctor for improvements. So if necessary, if you don't have access to a clinic or anything like that, go make an appointment, go and see your doctor every 3 months, every 6 months. And maybe if you are wanting to get onto a new track, go and see your GP, your primary care doctor. Let them check everything. Let them check your pulse. Let them check your breathing. Let them check your blood pressure. Let them check your temperature so that you know your base numbers. If they consider them elevated and they suggest ways of reducing it, follow those suggestions. If they're happy, great. Make an appointment once a year. Get checked out. As I said in my talk this morning, if you own a car, when do you take it to the garage? Only when there's smoke pouring out the bonnet, or you can't start it, or it keeps breaking down along the side of the road? Or do you service it regularly? Most cars you need to service every 10 to 15,000 Ks. I had my car serviced over the weekend, and it was its annual 15,000 kilometer service. And I know it's now good for another year because it was checked, all the fluid levels were topped off, and it was given a clean bill of health. If I don't do that, and I let it get covered in dust and dirt and just let it go, somewhere along the line, it's not if, it's when, it's going to give me problems. And when it gives me those problems, they are going to be very expensive. The same with us. If you don't check your blood pressure, you don't check your pulse, you don't check your cholesterol levels, etc., regularly, and every 6 to 12 months is regular enough, in my opinion, unless you know that there's a problem, then if it comes time, or when it comes time, let me rephrase it, when it comes time where you suddenly pass out because your blood pressure is shot through the roof, or you've had a stroke, or you've had a mild heart attack, that becomes extremely expensive to fix. And you're not going to fix it properly. If you keep checking and prevent those problems, the costs are significantly less. I often jokingly say, when I hear people say, oh, I don't want to go there because they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. Well, I happen to be in that business, and I happen to know how much an arm and a leg costs. So watch your diabetes, or watch your sugar levels, watch your smoking, because the cost of a leg, well, it's a whole new meaning to costing an arm and a leg. While you can't tweak your family history or gender, so you can't change your sex, you can't change your genes, there are a lot of things that you can do to change your numbers from bad to good. Nature is very forgiving. And if anything is elevated abnormally, check and see what is causing that. Is it your diet? Is it your lifestyle? Those things you can change, you can reverse them, and you can get healthy and you can live longer. Next tip is to monitor your cholesterol. When your cholesterol rises, your risk of coronary heart disease does as well. This is according to Dr. Scafidi. So again, I mentioned this in my talk this morning or this afternoon. Cholesterol isn't the enemy. If you never eat one morsel of food that is supposedly high in cholesterol, your body will create its own cholesterol. Cholesterol is a protective factor. One of these days, I'll do a talk just on cholesterol. But cholesterol is a protective factor. So cholesterol is not the enemy. What happens, though, is if that cholesterol sticks to your artery walls and oxidizes, that's where the problem comes. Because either it's going to block up that artery wall altogether, or you exert yourself and it's going to shoot through the system and lodge in your heart to cause a heart attack, lodge in your brain to cause a stroke, or lodge in your leg and cause more of a problem over there. So be aware of these things. Just the same as your kitchen sink. If you keep frying foods and pouring the fat and oil down the drain, it'll drain. The water will go through without a problem for a while, until one day you chuck some water down there and the water doesn't go down your drain. Two things have happened. One thing, you aren't using LDC because that holds everything in suspension and prevents it from clogging up. The next thing you know is that that fat and oil that has been going through there for months or years has now oxidized and caused that blockage. And you need to possibly call in a plumber, very expensive, to get it cleaned out. If you can prevent the problem, a lot cheaper. So if your cholesterol is considered a problem if you have too much LDL, which is low density cholesterol, or low density lipids is what the LDL stands for, or bad cholesterol. It can sneakily build up in your arteries and it forms a plaque and narrows the passages. Dr. Scafidi says eating a heart-healthy diet, exercising, and avoiding tobacco smoke can all help to lower the bad cholesterol. He recommends eating a diet that is filled with vegetables, whole grains, fruits, low-fat dairy products, fish, poultry, and nuts. And according to him, he likes to snack on foods that are high in omega-3, like edamame beans. Now, omega-3 is found in plants, but it's not as effective as what is found in fish. The next thing we need to do is to maintain a healthy weight. And again, genes play a big role over here. Now, I did mention last week that BMI is always what has been the factor that they use up until now, but that's starting to change because they have noticed that if you take an athlete or a bodybuilder, for instance, they have a very high BMI according to the levels. However, that is because of muscle, not fat. So BMI isn't always an issue. I did mention last week about using a tape measure around your waist. That is more of an indication of your weight status than your BMI. But for the purposes of this talk, if your BMI is over 25, you're considered overweight or obese. And you need to keep an eye on that number and bring it down. Excess weight puts additional work on the heart, and it also raises the blood pressure and cholesterol. You can start by modifying your diet. You can begin by eliminating sugary drinks and sodas or chips and incorporating 30 minutes of exercise per day. And this is all according to Dr. Scafidi. Losing weight doesn't have to be complicated. Start small and work your way up to big changes that will have a lasting impact on your heart health. Like everything, have one less chip if you can't quit them all in one go. Have one less soda, or have a soda every second or third day if you can't quit it all at one time. Get a partner to help you, to hold you accountable. It helps. I'm going to stop there because I think my time is about over. We've got about 8 minutes, but I'm still going to stop sharing for now because I'd like to leave time for comments or questions if anybody has that before I pause.